Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. For my returning viewers, welcome back. Glad to have you. So what we're going to be doing today is just some basic maintenance. We're going to do an oil change on this 2016 Toyota Tundra. Now this process will be virtually identical for 07 to 2020, both Toyota Tundras and Toyota Sequoias. I'm using Mobil 1 full synthetic 020. And I just buy 2 gallons because it comes out to be a little bit cheaper. We're going to need around 7 quarts. And I run a Wix oil filter in mine, part number 57041. So that's all we're going to need for this today. The materials we're going to need is about $60. So we're going to save some money from having the dealership do it. We're going to be able to do our maintenance at home, not have to sit somewhere and wait, and we're going to do it ourselves, so we're going to know it's done right. If you enjoy this kind of content, stick around. I'm going to have some more videos coming up. So I'm doing the 120,000 mile service on this truck, so I'm about to do a video on spark plugs, and I'll do a video on replacing the air filter and cabin air filter. So if you're interested in seeing those, stick around. Those will be coming up soon. But today we're just going over the oil change. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'll show you the tools we need and exactly how to go about doing this yourself. Let's get started. Okay, so I've got the hood up on the vehicle. After we do that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to crawl under and remove the skid plate. This is going to give us access to our oil pan so we can take the drain bolt out and drain our oil and our oil filter. All of that is going to be protected by this front skid plate. So let me take you underneath the front of the vehicle and show you what we're going to have to remove to get that skid plate off. So as we come under here, this is the driver's side of the vehicle. The very first thing you'll see under here are these 3 fasteners. So these 3 fasteners are 10 millimeter, and they're holding this front lip of the bumper to the skid plate. So we'll remove those, and then there's 2 holes up here towards the front, and those are going to have 12 millimeter bolts, as well as several back here. Those are all going to be 12 millimeter bolts. Alright, so let me show you what I got here. I got my electric ratchet, 10 mil socket for the front 3, the first 3 I showed you. Then I got this extension with a 12 mil socket, so we'll switch over to that to get the rest of the skid plate bolts. I'll set you guys up, and you can watch me get this skid plate off, and then I'll show you the next step. We're going to start by removing these 3 10 mil bolts. Alright, now that those are out of the way, I'm going to switch over to my 12 mil with my extension. So, another important note here is the front of the skid plate has 2 hooks that are holding it in place. So I'm going to remove the bolts from the front of the skid plate first. The hooks will hold it in place, and then I'm going to move to the back of the skid plate and support it while I remove the back 2 bolts, and then I'll slide it all to the driver's side. The hooks will let down, and then we'll finish removing this skid plate. So let's go ahead and remove those front 2 now. Alright, now I'm going to support this while I remove the last 2 back ones. Alright, now with those 4 removed, this should be free. So I'm going to slide it towards the driver's side. And those hooks released. Now we'll just set it down. So as you see, here's our oil filter housing. Driver's side tire, come into where your lower control arm connects to this subframe. Right under the skid plate here is your oil filter housing. So we're going to need a 3/8 drive to take this off, and then we'll have a drain piece that comes with our oil filter. We can stick up in there and drain this housing of oil, and then we can take the filter housing off and replace our filter. To remove this filter housing, you're going to need this filter housing socket. It goes right up on there, and then it'll let us remove this. This one is 6AP-14 is the part number. If you're interested in getting you one of these, I will link one down in the description, or try to make it real easy to find. So the next thing we're going to do, you look straight back here, that's our oil pan. We're going to remove the drain plug from that, drain our oil. Then after we drain our oil, we will move up here, change our filter out, and then refill it with oil. So let's move over to the back and go start draining the oil. Now we're ready to start draining our oil, okay? Got my 14mm socket on my ratchet, got my drain pan here, and I've got a big overspill sheet beneath it just so I don't make a mess all over my garage. So we're gonna break this bolt loose, see how big of a mess we make. Alright, not too bad of a mess. I see our sealing washer is no longer on this bolt, so it's probably stuck to the pan. So you always want to make sure to replace that washer. And so we'll want to make sure that washer is removed from the pan so we don't have two washers on there. Just like when we go to replace our oil filter, you never want to have two gaskets underneath your oil filter. So we'll look at that when we get to the oil filter. For now, I'll just finish letting this drain. Then we'll put the bolt back in. Okay, so now that that's mostly done draining, I got us a new seal washer. I'll put that on our bolt here, and then I'm gonna start that back into the oil pan. And this oil that's dripped on here, I like to just wipe that off so I can check this for leaks later and make sure nothing's leaking. Then we'll just snug it up. Alright, now that that's snugged, let's move over to that oil filter housing, get the oil drained out of that, and swap our filter. So as I said earlier, our first thing here is going to be using a 3/8 drive to remove this center piece. Once we got that broke loose, we can remove it the rest of the way. I'm trying to position our pan directly underneath this. Alright, I got our pan underneath this as best I could. We're going to take this piece from our new oil filter and jam it up in here. Then we'll start draining the oil out of that housing. Alright, so this piece can get kind of tricky to remove when your hands are all oily. We'll just get a flat blade screwdriver in between this and your housing, and you can pry it down out of the way. Okay, so let me bring you in here a little closer and show you what else we need to replace. So you see this O-ring came off with our drain there. So there'll be a new O-ring with our filter, and it's going to go in right here. And then we'll put that flat plate back on that we originally took off. And then we'll take this oil filter out, and there'll be another O-ring that goes on that filter that we'll replace as well. So let's get our O-ring installed, put this piece back on, and then take our filter out. Alright, I got our new O-ring. They'll just set right in there. Then we'll screw this piece back in. Snug it up. Alright, we'll slide that tool up on there, make sure it's seated down good. And then you can either use the 1/2-inch drive end inside or a 27mm socket. Will probably still be just a little bit of oil left in here, but we drained most of it. And now you can see on this housing this other O-ring. So we're gonna just pull this filter straight out, and then we'll take a pick or a screwdriver, whatever you got, get this old O-ring out. And then we just want to coat the new O-ring in some oil, slide it back down over, throw a new filter in, and then installation is reverse of removal. So let's do that. So this filter just pulls straight off. Still have my screwdriver here close. Get up under this O-ring, pull it off. Okay, here's our new O-ring. Grab some of this oil that's dripping, and we're just gonna coat this O-ring in oil. Just work it back on here. Work it all the way back down to the bottom. Okay, once you got it on all the way around, you can put our new filter on, just slides in, and now we will just reinstall. Okay, now I'm going to hit all this with brake clean, clean all this oil off here. That way we know later if something's leaking, we know it's new oil. So these hooks right here, there's one on either side. These are what I was talking about earlier. And they will, and these are going to go up in these longer elongated slots in this bottom core support. They'll hook in there, and then they're going to slide over, and they'll hold the front of this and keep those lined up. So when we're putting this back in, we'll fish the front end first, get it hooked, push it up to the back, and then grab a couple of our bolts and get them started to hold our skid plate up. Alright guys, this is the most difficult part of the whole job, but as you see, I'm laying under here. I supported this back part with my chest and hold this up. I had to steal the light to get the front hooks lined up in their holes. And then once they were lined up and I hooked it, then I just working on getting these back ones lined up and get one started. Now we should be able to finish securing this down. Alright, re-securing the skid plate and getting it started is the worst part of the job. But now that we've gotten it started, let's finish securing these front bolts and then get these 10mm, and then we'll get these 10mm ones put back in. Okay, now we'll move up top, put some new oil in. Okay, so now on the driver's side, here's our oil fill. I'm gonna remove that, set it up here, put a funnel in so it'll make a huge mess. Now we're gonna start out by dumping one of these gallon jugs in. We're gonna dump all of it, and then we'll need a couple quarts out of our second one. And that's it, guys, simple as that. Well, there you have it, guys. That's an oil change on one of these Tundras. Again, this will also fit for the Sequoias. As you saw, fairly simple process. Putting the skid plate on is going to be the only thing that fights you, but I guarantee you can still do this at home, save yourself some money, and be doing the upkeep on your truck yourself, so you know it's getting done right. If you like this video, consider clicking like, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, I'm doing the 120,000 mile service on this truck, so stick around if you're interested in knowing how to change out your own spark plugs or cabin air filter. Both those videos are going to be coming up shortly. So we'll catch you on the next video, guys. Thanks for watching.